Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday night. I'm Corey Miller here with Frank Cusumano. We're going to try something a little different here. We're without Sports Plus for a couple weeks because of the Olympics. Probably going to carry this on when we get back to Sports Plus just to talk some more with you guys. We're going to call this Frank's 5 Hot Topics for the Week. Frank, we're going to dive right in. Just take off the big things everybody's talking about around town. We're going to get to the Blues first because they're the big talk. Buchnevich trade with the Rangers. What do you think? What was the first thing you thought when you saw it?
I thought Doug Armstrong did it again. I thought, heading into this draft, they were going to draft a bunch of guys that nobody's ever heard of. It's going to be an uneventful night. And then all of a sudden, boom, you get a guy that scored 20 goals in a 54-game season, a guy who's going to score 25 in a regular season in the prime of his career. He's exactly what the doctor ordered. You give up Sammy Blais, who's never going to score more than 10. You give up a second-round draft choice you don't know about. It's just a classic Doug Armstrong move. Now the question is, what does he do next? And I think it comes down to Tarasenko a little bit. If you can get somebody to take that contract, and you have a chance to get Gabriel Landeskog, there's a real shot there. But Corey, here's the thing. If they don't move him, then you may be looking at re-signing Jaden Schwartz or Mike Hoffman. I don't think that turns anybody on. Now, I got to tell you, I would take Hoffman back in a minute, and I would let the coach know, hey, he's playing a lot more. He's going to be on the first-team power play because I don't blame Hoffman for last year at all. I blame the coach, who I really like and respect, guest last week, for not using him in the right way.
Yeah, I think, well, getting back to the trade, what excited me the most was going through Rangers fans online and how mad they were. And I'm like, okay, this is making me feel better. If they're this angry about losing this guy, we should be excited. But yeah, the Tarasenko piece has to come next, you think?
And if you got rid of him, you could bring back either Hoffman or Schwartz and get Gabriel Landeskog. But if you don't move him, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, Matthew Tkachuk is still out there, and you know Matthew Tkachuk would want to come to St. Louis.
That Landeskog-O'Reilly connection is
Oh,
pretty
my goodness.
tight, too.
But how about this, too, Corey? It's eerily similar to Alex Pietrangelo, the blood and guts, the face of your franchise, the captain. Does he actually leave? Well, we know what happened last year in St. Louis. Alex Pietrangelo did leave. So
yeah,
we'll see if Landeskog will do this next.
Number 2 here. Let's start on an optimistic note for the Cardinals because Sunday's game was good, and the guy that's really been keying everything lately is Harrison Bader. I mean, we knew he had a little bit of this in him, but this is the hottest I've ever seen him.
Yeah, we never thought he'd hit 290 with an 860 OPS, and we never thought we'd have 3 outfielders at the same time in St. Louis, Missouri producing. I mean, let's face it. Tyler O'Neill, 17 home runs, close to an 850 OPS. And then all Dylan Carlson has done is lead Major League rookies in base hits. Look, we always talk in St. Louis about the outfielders that aren't here. Randy Rosarina, Tommy Pham, and quite a few others, actually. There's a fella in Toronto that hit some home runs,
Grichuk
too.
up north, Garcia down in Texas.
But, I mean, all of a sudden, if you have these 3 producing, and we know they all run, we know they all play great defense, then maybe John Mozeliak will get the last laugh.
The outfield is talented. They could maybe hold that offense together, but we got to get a little pessimistic here. Just me looking from the outside in, I'm not seeing any trades coming down the pike. What are you thinking here in this week leading up to the trade deadline? They're 8.5 games out of first behind Milwaukee. That's really the biggest thing. Milwaukee's so far out ahead. What do the Cardinals do?
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I don't think they're giving up, some great pieces in Memphis right now.
I don't blame them either.
Yeah. So if they were a little bit closer, if they were 5 games out, maybe you'd think about something like that, although I don't want to trade Nolan Gorman or Matthew Libator or Jordan Walker, any of those. But I think that it's going to be a trading deadline that will be more quiet than a monastery.
All right, that was our 3rd hot topic. Let's get to number 4. We'll talk some Olympics. We are the Olympic station after all. And we have to stay a little bit pessimistic and talk Olympic basketball because Team USA we thought, okay, these games don't count at first. Nigeria, a couple Australia, like, okay, they'll turn it on when they have to. They did not. They lost to France, and this team just doesn't look like a team, honestly.
Yeah, and I tell you, Coach Popovich is barely tolerable when he wins, and then when he loses, it's really rough to be around the guy. Now, here's the thing. Is if we go old school, Corey, and you and I were looking at Team USA and Team France, and you were to pick 10 players, 9 of the 10, first 10, would be from the United States.
Yeah.
Okay? 9 of the 10. So I know they only started practicing the 4th of July, and I know the France team has been around for a while. But you think if you're trotting out Lillard and KD and Tatum and Levine and, Booker, all that, you win the game. So here's what I noticed at the end of this game. They didn't have anybody who wanted to be an alpha dog. They were all deferring to each other.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time for Kevin Durant to say, okay, it's mine at the end. But it's embarrassing. Now it's on to Iran. I don't know if that statement's ever been made in USA basketball. But they can beat Iran, and then they beat Czechoslovakia, then they get to the real stuff. So I
so
like
the
their chances.
panic button is not
Not
totally
yet.
pushed
I mean,
here.
because they still have Kevin Durant, and nobody else does.
That's a good point. Okay, let's get to our last one here. I don't know if you saw this. I might surprise you on this one.
All right.
We're going to talk. I put this question to Rennie and Casey on our Sports Plus podcast. I spent the last 2 days just flipping around random Olympic events and watching some of these weirder things that I kind of like. I got into water polo today, badminton yesterday. What's your favorite, sit down, I'll watch this random sport for an hour and get really into it kind of thing?
Well, actually, in shocking news, it's that 3-on-3. I thought, wait a minute, this is the Olympics? I do this in my backyard all the time. I thought that was really kind of a cool new event. It's only for the women, correct?
No, the men have a team too, I'm pretty
Really?
sure.
I don't know who the men are.
I'm pretty sure the men have a team.
Okay. But I thought that was fascinating, yeah. And, I have to be honest with you, the women's gymnastics is still by far my favorite thing to watch because we got to see it here up close and personal. And every time I see Simone Biles on TV in slow motion, I wonder, how can this be a human being like you and me? How can she have the same legs and arms and get up that high without a jetpack on her back?
I tell you what, she moves the needle more than anybody else, too.
Yeah.
People cannot get enough Simone Biles, and we're definitely going to see a lot of her over the next few days. We're also on these Frank Hot Topics. We might be doing some look backs and some of Frank's favorite stories from over the years. 35 years ago to the day tomorrow, I believe, one of the worst stories probably we've seen here in St. Louis. Tony Van Zandt, the injuries, and if you're at all familiar, you know just what a shame it was he didn't get to live out his career like we all thought he would. Frank, intro this story we're going to watch here.
Yeah, when in the mid-'80s, the most prominent high school name in St. Louis sports was Tony Van Zandt. I mean, he walked on water. He's going to win Heisman's. He's going to lead Mizzou to the Orange Bowl, and he's going to be a first-round draft choice. Well, a funny thing happened to Tony Van Zandt on his way to stardom. He never got there. A few years ago, we went and visited him, and this is one unbelievable story. Let's take a look. Tony Van Zandt.
Well, it's kind of like looking down a loaded gun.
The name's just synonymous with St. Louis high school football.
I thought he was one of the best backs I've ever seen coming out of high school.
Even the name, Tony Van Zandt.
Ooh, brings chills.
Go! Tony Van Zandt has been coaching football in Jefferson City for 6 years. First as an assistant at Lincoln University, where he tried to help to resurrect a program that had been dead for years. He knows something about that, considering where he's been.
How close were you to killing yourself?
It was pretty close. Pretty close.
Tony Van Zandt was the most electrifying talent our town has ever seen on a high school football field. Sprinter speed and a 6'3", 225-pound body carved out of granite. At Hazelwood Central, Van Zandt galloped and glided his way to over 6,100 yards and 91 touchdowns. Parade magazine named him the National High School Player of the Year.
I compare Tony to an Adrian Peterson.
Kind of reminded me of Eric Dickerson.
It looked like a snake slithering through a field.
Every college in America wanted Van Zandt, and the big-name coaches came to North County.
Lou Holtz,
Well, Tom Osborne,
Bo Sham back there in Michigan.
You know, Barry Switzer.
It was kind of amazing just to see those type of guys come around to my house and trying to get me to play football at the university. You know, I got a bunch of newspaper articles.
Steve Miller, who had coached at Hazelwood Central earlier in his career, was the Mizzou recruiter who convinced Tony to be a Tiger.
You know, when you have a great running back, it can change your program around. Example, Barry Sanders came out at the same time as Tony did. And look what he did at Oklahoma State, you know, Heisman Trophy winner. Look what he did in the NFL. Yeah, Tony, we felt Tony could have been our salvation.
When they signed him, I mean, people that were around then, I mean,
you could argue best running back ever to come out of St. Louis, and he's the kind of guy, you get a guy like that, he can save or resurrect an entire program.
But a funny thing happened to Van Zandt on his way to the Heisman. He never got there. A few months after graduation, he agreed to play in a Lions Club high school all-star game in Jefferson City.
Well, it was just a regular toss play. There was a toss left. I was coming this way, and I went to slow down to go back, and it just Buckland just gave out on me.
News flash, Mizzou top running back Tony Van Zandt injured his knee.
It was like no one ever hit me or anything. It was just a freak accident.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here you got one of the most exciting running backs that ever came out of the St. Louis area. You hope it's not serious.
It was. The 4.3 40 speed and his Heisman aspirations were over. In the 1980s, torn up knees were not timeouts for players, they were terminal.
It's like a racehorse, you know, when you break a racehorse's leg, sometimes they don't come back.
Tony Van Zandt openly admits he wasn't as vigilant as he should have been in the rehabilitation of the left knee, which was injured on this field. However, in the end, it may not have mattered because 2 years later, while at Missouri, he ripped up his right knee. So the man who once used to be the rarest of running backs became a dime a dozen. Van Zandt did play sparingly for Mizzou and finished his career with 52 carries and 1 touchdown.
So every day, I think about the same thing. You know, what happened if I wouldn't have got hurt? Where would I be at now? Those type of things. I ask myself those questions all the time.
The drinking and depression set in after college. Later, Van Zandt became suicidal.
Did you ever purchase a gun?
No, nothing like that. It was just, you know, either pills or razor blades, things of that nature, but it was never nothing with a gun. You know, just not being able to do anything. Just sitting there and just go out to the store and grab something, come home, just sit in the dark and just drink and just think. Cry, why me? There was a lot of things I always said to myself, why me? And then, you know, one day I was at the store getting ready to buy something else, and I don't know who the gentleman was. It was an older guy. He asked me my name and everything, and I told him. And he said, you know what, sorry to hear about your injuries, but you know, sometimes God has plans for people to do other things. Maybe it wasn't meant for you to play football. Maybe it's meant for you to go out here and be a coach, be a mentor, to help younger kids get better, to teach them things that you used to know.
The irony is that the field where he coached for 5 years at Lincoln was the exact same field where the injury occurred. The beginning of coaching, the ending, in a sense, of playing.
It's something that wants me to be a coach for kids and help out kids. And it brought me to a place where I got injured, where it took half of my ability away, but I'm here doing it.
He was one of the best that I think Missouri has ever produced.
Tony Van Zandt just turned 50 years old. He's healthy, happy, and now coaching the running backs at Jefferson City High School. We've talked a few times lately, and just before we hung up the other day, he asked me, do you think I'll ever be considered for the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame? I think the best high school football player ever from this area is a Hall of Famer. Don't you? Frank Cusumano, 5 on Your Side Sports.
That'll do it for Frank and I this week. Be sure to stay tuned for all of our Olympic coverage, and we will be back with Sports Plus later in August. Have a great week, everybody.